andron tond arete, afthiton aiei, eschon gar pezoite kai okiporon epineon, helada me pasan dulion emar iden. The last episode has covered the occurrences concerning the battles of Artemisium and Salamis. Finding themselves in a situation most dire, the Athenians were forced to heavy-heartedly abandon their homes. The polis of Salamis, Aegina, and Troezen provided refuge for Athenian women and children. Once again, a wise yet daring strategos saved the day, not only for the Athenians, but for all other mainland Greeks. Cunning Themistocles managed to lure the Persians into attacking the allied Greek fleet in the Straits of Salamis, negating the superior numbers of Xerxes' navy. Although the Greeks inflicted a crushing blow upon the Persian fleet, the threat of Achaemenid enslavement was still looming. The majority of Persian ground forces were left to overwinter in Thessaly, under Mardonius's command. During the period of idleness, Mardonius tried to create a strife among the Athenians and Lacedaemonians. Being a subject of Xerxes, the Macedonian king Alexander I was sent as an envoy to the Athenians with terms. The Persians offered war reparations and alliance, leaving Athens an independent polis. The Spartans knew, should the Athenians accept this offer, they themselves would be doomed. An embassy was promptly dispatched to the Athenians in order to promise them material assistance for war casualties. Nonetheless, the Athenians declined Mardonius's offer and, in following words, added, "Now carry this answer back to Mardonius from the Athenians, that as long as the sun holds the course by which he goes now, we will make no agreement with Xerxes. We will fight against him without ceasing, trusting in the aid of the gods and the heroes whom he has disregarded, and burn their houses and their adornments." Paradoxically, Mardonius's attempt to divide the Athenians and the Spartans must have achieved quite the opposite. Now the Spartans realized they would have to become more flexible, or the Athenians might turn to Persia. Soon after the failed diplomatic mission, the wall on the isthmus was at last finished. Feeling safe at the moment, the Peloponnesians started acting selfishly yet again. As an excuse, they stated the celebration of the festival named Hyacinthiia prevented them from aiding Athens, just as the celebration of Carneia allegedly hindered them in sending more troops to Thermopylae a year ago. In spring of 479 BC, Mardonius marched through Boeotia and was able to seize Athens for the second time, compelling the Athenians to evacuate once more. Thereafter, Mardonius offered the same terms to the Athenians he had presented them before. Meanwhile, Athens, Megara, and Plataea immediately gave the Lacedaemonians an ultimatum. Should they deny military aid, a treaty would be made with Mardonius. 10 days later, the Ephors finally decided to send a substantial force led by Pausanias, the regent of his underage nephew and Leonidas' son, Pleisterhos. Mardonius responded by retreating to Thebes in Boeotia, where a camp was established. The Greek and Persian ground armies finally met in Boeotia in August 479 BC. Mardonius was cautious and took a defensive stance. Greek forces numbered around 80,000 men, and Persian forces about 110,000. The Spartans and the Tegeans made up the right flank, while the Athenians were positioned on the left flank, led by Aristides. The supreme commander of Greek forces, Pausanias, had expected the Persians to attack first, but nothing more than skirmishes was made. 10 days later, Pausanias ordered the relocation of all troops in order to obtain a better strategic position. At this time, Mardonius caught sight of the maneuver and ordered a hasteful attack. The Persians had one great advantage. The Greeks had no cavalry to oppose the elite Eastern cavalrymen. A cavalry contingent had managed to intercept the moving Spartans, and the battle began. Not long after, the majority of the Persian forces arrived, with Mardonius himself leading the charge. However, the battle was fought on Greeks' terms again. The induced Persian attack happened on an uneven terrain, where the efficiency of cavalry was significantly reduced. The fighting was nonetheless fierce. Spartan hoplites were slowly pushing the Persian forces back, and at one point Mardonius fell in battle. Although he fought courageously, his death marked the turning point. Persian morale fell apart, and the soldiers started routing not long after. Spartan discipline and the capability of its hoplites came to full expression at the Battle of Plataea. The curiosity of this battle lies in the fact that it was decided by a fraction of troops from both sides. On the Greek side, the Spartans and the Tegeans did most of the fighting, while a large part of the Persian army led by Artabazus didn't even participate, maybe because of the rivalry between him and Mardonius. In honor of this battle, the victors dedicated a votive gift to Apollo in Delphi. The golden tripod, also known as the Plataean tripod, sat on a pillar bordered by 3 bronze snakes, the serpent column. It carried an inscription consisting of the names of Greek poleis participating in this war. What is left of it today is only the pillar without the tripod and the snakes. It can be found in modern-day Istanbul, since Constantine the Great had arranged a relocation to his newly founded city of Constantinople in 330 AD. The Greek victory at Plataea signified the end of Persians' offensive and the beginning of Greek attacks. First, the city of Thebes had been captured, and the political leaders were punished for their previous cooperation with the Persians. The Allied fleet was mostly idle after the Battle of Salamis, and it was so because the Greeks didn't know the number of ships the Persians had on disposal. Before the Battle of Plataea, the Allied fleet was stationed on the island of Delos. Extant sources, including Herodotus, claim the battles of Plataea and Mycale were fought on the same day. This is probably false. Firstly, it is hard to believe the fleet set out to Asia Minor before the victory at Plataea. The Greeks must have felt secure to move out only after defeating Mardonius's army. Secondly, in Greek historiography, it is not rare to find assertions about major battles being fought on the same day. During the Persian invasion of 480 BC, another fateful war was fought, this time on the island of Sicily. According to Herodotus, the deciding battle of Himera between the Greeks and the Carthaginians took place on the exact same day as the Battle of Salamis. On the other hand, Diodorus of Sicily claims the Battle of Himera was fought on the same day as the Battle of Thermopylae. Whatever the case, these battles proved crucial in deciding the fate of the Greeks. Although low in probability, Greek tradition felt convenient to emphasize the importance of these events by presenting them as happening at the same day because of the profound importance they carried for all Greeks living in the 5th century BC. By all odds, the Battle of Mycale took place a few days after the clash of 2 armies at Plataea in late August 479 BC. The Greeks from Asia Minor requested Leotychides, who was the Spartan king and supreme commander of Allied fleet, sail to Asia Minor and liberate fellow Greeks from Persian rule. Leotychides accepted, and soon enough disembarked on the coast near Mount Mycale. The majority of the Persian army consisted of Ionian Greeks, which deserted to Leotychides during the battle, enabling the Greeks an easy victory. Delivered from the Persian yoke, the Greeks in Asia Minor joined the Greek alliance. At this time, Leotychides and his Spartans decided to sail back home. Afterwards, in a series of military successes, the Athenians set their course towards building their 5th century maritime empire, but that will be the topic of another video. Ships commanded under Athens set sail for Hellespont with purpose of eliminating the remnants of Persian rule in Europe. Achaemenid resistance was concentrated in the city of Sestos. The siege of Sestos is the very last event Herodotus describes in his Histories. The city fell in Greek hands in 478 BC. Pindar, the famous poet living during the time of Greco-Persian wars, wrote, "From Salamis I will win as my reward the gratitude of the Athenians, and in Sparta, from the battles before Cytheron, those battles in which the Medes, with their curved bows, suffered sorely." With crucial victories at Salamis in 480 BC, Plataea and Mycale in 479 BC, the Greeks were finally able to repel the Persians back to Asia. Had they succumbed to the Eastern menace, it would be questionable whether the Greek civilization would have flourished, and whether their values, embodied in art, philosophy, and democracy, would have had such a major influence on modern civilization. The cost was paid in many brave lives, including the one of a Spartan king, and complete victory achieved thanks to wise commanders like Miltiades and Themistocles. The people of Athens commemorate these events via modifying their coinage. From now on, the goddess Athena wore a laurel wreath. The consequence of the Greco-Persian conflict was the liberation of the Greeks in Asia Minor from Achaemenid rule. But much more important was that Athens, although suffering heavy losses, ultimately gained the most out of this war. The scene had been set, and the Delian League was found in 478 BC, and through time, the Athenians succeeded in establishing hegemony in the Aegean basin. With this video, we have covered the entirety of the Greco-Persian wars, save the Ionian Revolt, which will be the topic of another video in the future. Feel free to leave suggestions for future videos. This channel deals not only with ancient Greek history, but also with all aspects of the ancient Greek civilization. Sources, society, religion, mythology, philosophy, art, famous individuals, and so on. Thank you for watching this documentary about the Greco-Persian wars on the Ancient Greek Logos channel.